Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to certainly talk about. First, let's talk about this big announcement coming from Harvard University, where the president will stay in the midst of all of this anti-Semitism controversy. We're going to talk a little bit about that with our very special guest, with scholar, researcher, author, a lawyer, Dr. Gerald Horne will be joining us. He's also going to talk to us about the impact of the U.S. veto on the UN ceasefire initiative. And let's talk about Representative Sheila Jackson Lee's race in Houston. Later on, we're going to talk about planning for financial freedom. We're going to check in with Dr. Edmund Moore to talk about the latest with that. And a white author leaves bad reviews of black authors to sabotage their sales to put her in a better space for her book to be #1. We're going to talk about that as well. So stay with us. A lot to discuss here on today's edition of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we stream live on a number of different platforms. First and foremost, go to our website today, folks. If you haven't already, you can check us out as we stream live on blackstarnetwork.com. Again, that's blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app on all of your devices. Follow us on social media. And of course, we ask for your financial support as we are moving further along in this digital space, but you can find us streaming there. And we're also streaming on Amazon platforms, on Amazon News or your Fire TV. We're also on Amazon Prime Video, where you can also find us on Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, the news. And we're also on the Freevee network. Thank you, Freevee, for your support. You can check us out there on Now under News. And we're on Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV with news and opinion. Also, folks, we're streaming on the social media sites, Facebook, and, of course, on YouTube under Roland Martin. So make sure you check out Roland Martin's Facebook page and Roland Martin's YouTube page. And it's on Roland Martin's YouTube page that we have the illustrious, the dynamic culture crew. There we go. Come on, let's give them a horns or something for the culture crew, man. And they all checking in right now. Folks are checking in from around the country. And big shout out to my crew. Man, oh man, Pastor Damon was set. Pastor Damon, thank you so much for kicking it off. Our hearts and prayers continue to be with you and your family, big brother. So you are certainly a huge part of this culture crew community. Mr. Benny Woods, thank you so much. You say hello, Black America, as Black America says. Hello, Benny Woods. Thank you for checking in. Neek Hawks, thank you so much. Good day, Neek. Thank you so much for checking in. Sunny Gabriel, what's good with you? Thank you for being a part of the culture crew for the day. The ABX girl, I see you. Thank you so much for checking in. Tiana, my sister, thank you. Hey, Tiana. Cindy D, hello to you as well, Cindy. Thank you for checking in. Big brother Willie Frazier. Yes, sir. Good to connect with you once again, big brother. I see you, CC Knight. Greetings to you. Francesca Epps, I see you. Who else we got here? Conscious Thought, my God. Thank you so much for checking in. Who else we got here? Donna McAdoo Kelly. Donna, I see you. Thank you so much. You say, hey, crew. Mr. Earl Romney, I got you. Good connecting with you, sir. And who else I see in here? Who else? We got some folks that are checking in. Nigel Kennan. Nigel, thank you so much for checking in, and I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of the discussion. All right, folks, let's jump right into it because we got a lot of ground to cover, and I'm very, very excited because we have a dynamic voice. He is one of the great voices, not just here on the network, but one of the great voices of Black America. He is an author. He is a lawyer. He is a professor. He is a historian. Let's bring him on, Dr. Gerald Horne. Dr. Horne, good afternoon, sir. How are you, big brother?
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Horne, let's talk a little bit about first what's going on with Harvard and higher education as the president of Harvard is and will be staying in the role. We're talking about President Claudine Gay, and she is going to be staying in the role. And according to the board of Harvard, They put out a statement saying, quote, as members of the Harvard Corporation, we today reaffirm our support for President Gay's continued leadership of Harvard University. Our extensive deliberations affirm our confidence that President Gay is the right leader to help our community heal and to address the very serious societal issues we are facing. President Gay has apologized for how she handled her congressional testimony and committed to redoubling the university's fight against anti-Semitism. And this is based upon the fact that her, along with her counterparts from the University of Pennsylvania and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, they drew major criticism of Dr. Horn when they appeared at a House hearing last week, and they seemed to, quote unquote, dodge a question of whether students calling for the genocide of Jews should be punished. I want to play just a little bit of what President Gay said at that congressional hearing and then get your take. Take a look, folks.
Ms. Stefanik, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Dr. Gay, a Harvard student calling for the mass murder of African Americans is not protected free speech at Harvard, correct?
Our commitment to free speech...
It's a yes or no question. Is that corrected? Is that okay for students to call for the mass murder of African Americans at Harvard? Is that protected free speech?
Our commitment to free speech
It's a yes or no question. Let me ask you this. You are president of Harvard, so I assume you're familiar with the term intifada, correct?
I've heard that term, yes.
And you understand that the use of the term intifada in the context of the Israeli-Arab conflict is indeed a call for violent armed resistance against the state of Israel, including violence against civilians and the genocide of Jews. Are you aware of that?
That type of hateful speech is personally abhorrent to me.
And there have been multiple marches at Harvard with students chanting, quote, there is only one solution, intifada revolution, and, quote, globalize the intifada. Is that correct?
I've heard that thoughtless, reckless, and hateful language on our campus, yes.
So based upon your testimony, you understand that this call for intifada is to commit genocide against the Jewish people in Israel and globally, correct?
I will say again, that type of hateful speech is personally abhorrent to me.
Do you believe that type of hateful speech is contrary to Harvard's code of conduct, or is it allowed at Harvard?
It is at odds with the values of Harvard.
Can you not say here that it is against the code of conduct at Harvard?
We embrace a commitment to free expression, even of views that are objectionable, offensive, hateful. It's when that speech crosses into conduct that violates our policies against bullying, harassment,
Does that speech not cross that barrier? Does that speech not call for the genocide of Jews and the elimination of Israel?
When
you testify that you understand that is the definition of intifada. Is that speech according to the code of conduct or not?
We embrace a commitment to free expression and give a wide berth to free expression, even of views that are objectionable.
You and I both know that's not the case. You were aware that Harvard ranked dead last when it came to free speech. Are you not aware of that report?
As I observed earlier, I reject that characterization.
It's the data shows it's true. And isn't it true that Harvard previously rescinded multiple offers of admissions for applicants and accepted freshmen for sharing offensive memes, racist statements, sometimes as young as 16 years old? Did Harvard not rescind those offers of admission?
That long predates my time as president.
But you understand that Harvard made that decision to rescind those offers of admission?
I have no reason to contradict the facts as you present them.
Correct, because it's a fact. You're also aware that a Winthrop House faculty dean was let go over who he chose to legally represent, correct? That was while you were dean.
That is an incorrect characterization of what transpired.
What's the characterization?
I'm not going to get into details about a personnel matter.
Well, let me ask you this. Will admissions offers be rescinded or any disciplinary action be taken against students or applicants who say, from the river to the sea or intifada, advocating for the murder of Jews?
As I've said, that type of hateful, reckless, offensive speech is personally abhorrent to me.
And today that no action will be taken. What action will be taken?
when speech crosses into conduct that violates our policies, including policies against bullying, harassment, or intimidation, we take action, and we have robust disciplinary processes that allow us to hold individuals accountable.
What action has been taken against students who are harassing and
Dr. Horn. I'm gonna let you have the floor, sir. You got it. You got it, Doc. Because I got some choice words for Representative Stefanik here.
Here's the problem. The speech codes that Congresswoman Stefanik was alluding to were crafted at a time to give latitude to expressions of anti-Blackness. Go to your search engine and type in Water Buffalo, Israeli student, Delta Sigma Theta, 1993. What you'll find is a similar controversy about speech on campus, interestingly involving the University of Pennsylvania, who, as you correctly suggested, their president just had to step down because of allegations that she had mishandled a controversy concerning anti-Jewish fervor. And so when that episode and episodes like that occurred decades ago, speech codes were crafted to give enormous leeway and latitude, again, to those who wanted to engage in anti-Blackness, such as at UPenn in 1993. But the worm is turned. And now there is ultra concern about the fragility and tender sensitivities and sensibilities of Jewish American students, who of course are defined as white. And Congressman Stefanik wants to have basically a double standard. That's point number one. Point number two is that it is an editorial judgment, to put it euphemistically, that chanting intifada, which basically means resisting illegal occupation under international law, or from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. The West Bank occupied territory is on the Jordan River. Gaza, now being bombed ceaselessly by the Israelis, is on the Mediterranean Sea. So one has to wonder in bafflement how that is considered to be genocide. And so in a certain sense, these college presidents were snookered. They were treated to a demagogic exercise by Congresswoman Stefanik, a Trumpista of the first rank. And she did not note, nor did most of the mainstream press, that as she was grilling these college presidents here in the state of Texas, the Republican Party, the ruling party for decades, made in a leadership decision that they would not isolate or otherwise steer clear of neo-Nazis or Holocaust deniers. Likewise, in the caucus, Republican caucus on Capitol Hill, in which Congresswoman Stefanik plays a leading role, you have a member, Congressman Massey of Kentucky, who's charged Jewish Americans with having, quote, dual loyalties, unquote, which is an ancient anti-Jewish canard suggesting that they cannot be true solely to the red, white, and blue because they are also true to the blue and white of Israel. You may recall that before 1960, you did not have a Catholic president. And when John F. Kennedy was elected in 1960, during the campaign, he was charged with dual loyalties because they said, or his antagonist said, that he couldn't be true both to the United States and while he was supposedly bending a knee to the Pope and the Vatican. So there's so much to quarrel with regard to what we've just watched. The tragedy is that we can't have this kind of debate except on the Black Star Network, I'm afraid to say. And there's one more point, too, which needs to be stressed, which is that in some ways, the Zionist lobby at Harvard, which was pressing for her to be sacked and fired, they were saved from themselves, because what's happening now is that the Biden White House is under enormous pressure from a number of U.S. corporations to change their policy away from the pro-Israeli stance. Look at the stock of Starbucks, for example. It's going through the basement. Why is that? Because there are global boycotts against many U.S. corporations that are consumer facing. I've watched a clip from Istanbul, Turkey, just the other day, where a pro-Palestinian protester went into the McDonald's and let loose a bunch of mice, sending the customers scurrying hither and yon. And so if they had sacked President Gay, it would have added fuel to the fire concerning how the White House is subservient to Prime Minister Netanyahu. I should also say that a shout out to the Black faculty at Harvard, who for the most part stood by President Gay, who, by the way, is a descendant of Haiti, a daughter of Haitian immigrant parents. And so there's so much to complain about and question, but sadly, most of what we're saying now is absent from the mainstream media.
Absolutely. We got to take a quick pause, but I do know that Representative Stefanik is actually a Harvard alumni as well. So you got to throw that personal connection into the mix as well. But it sounded very personal, but to the points that you just made, it once again, this is a moment that could be used as a teaching moment, a learning opportunity. But because there's so much of the emotion, and because I think to some degree, as you mentioned, there is this pro-Israel narrative that is trying to take over. Whereas now, years ago, that may have been fine. But we're in a new day and time, especially in 2023 going to 2024. And I've been reading, Dr. Horn, that there have been a number of spaces that have become more pro-Palestine than pro-Israel in this particular case. And the attitude of the country is changing. It is really, really changing. So to the point that you made about the White House being under great pressure from the corporations and from the American people, people are saying, you know what? We're putting money in Ukraine. We know that Zelensky is in Washington today asking for more money. Now you have that happening while Israel is still waging war and essentially expecting the United States to fund and support their efforts there. And so the American people are saying, this is what I'm getting. And we could talk about it on the other side, but the American people are saying enough is enough. Money is being spent. We're not handling the problems at home. And at the end of the day, what are we gaining from this involvement? And I think the president is going to have to say something or do more to try to encourage the American people to be on board with this, or to give us a different view as to the benefits of this unilateral, unequivocal support that America has for Israel. So it is going to be something else. We got to take a quick pause, folks. When we come on the other side, we'll continue the conversation with Dr. Gerald Horn as we talk about this controversy with Harvard President Christine Gay and her colleagues from MIT and the University of Pennsylvania. Plus, let's talk about the fact that the U.S. has vetoed a ceasefire effort that originated from the UAE and the UN. They have vetoed that effort, and essentially more war is being rendered right now in that part of the world. And then we'll also get Dr. Horn's take on what we saw in Houston, in his town of Houston, and Representative Sheila Jackson Lee losing the mayoral race. So still got a lot to talk about in this first half of the show. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We have been talking about the situation with Harvard University President Claudine Gay, how now it has been confirmed that she will not leave the role of being president. She is the second woman to serve in the role, but she's the first Black woman to serve in the role as being the university's president. But she will be staying in place in the midst of anti-Semitism controversy that came from her testimony at a committee hearing, a congressional hearing on anti-Semitism. It was her, along with her colleagues from the University of Pennsylvania, as well as MIT, which is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And in a contentious, combative exchange with Representative Elise Stefanik of New York, President Gay was seemed to have quote unquote dodged the questions about how to deal with anti-Semitism on the campus of Harvard University. We've been talking to Dr. Gerald Horne about this situation to get more to give us some more context on this. And Dr. Horne, you know, the President Gay, she has gone on to say that she did not believe that her testimony really represented how she truly felt. She got caught up in the combative nature of the testimony. She said she wasn't able to speak her truth, and she apologized for it. But she is just one of many presidents that are on the hot seat for this type of behavior. Where do we draw the line? Because folks in my chat, that were part of the crew, people are saying, well, when is enough enough? Because when we see anti-Blackness that's being displayed outside of the college campus, and then students have something to say, we don't see this level of attention. When we see, one crew member said, when we see Islamophobia take root in the country, when we see things about Asian people, with the Asian community, we're not seeing the same level of focus or emphasis as we're seeing as it relates to Jewish Americans. So how do we reconcile that, Dr. Horne?
Well, I would say that there's not only a double standard, there might be a triple standard, as represented by your previous comment. That is to say, there is an exaltation with regard to how we deal with alleged violations of speech codes when it comes to those who are defined as, quote, white, unquote. Perhaps a subset of that is an exaltation of how we treat those who are Jewish, and they're supposedly on the short end of the stick. But of course, when it comes to particularly Black folk and others who do not gain admission to those previous exalted categories, we're treated to a lower standard. Once again, look at that incident from the University of Pennsylvania 30 odd years ago involving an Israeli student shouting at Black women, members of Delta Sigma Theta, comparing them to water buffaloes. And then they made an objection. And of course, he did not even receive a slap on the wrist. And so let's face it, this is the country in which we live. And until we rise up in protest, I'm afraid to say that it's going to be like this for a while.
What do you, especially given this was an election year, we're going into a presidential campaign. This is a major point of contention with some Black voters and some non-Black voters who are under the Democratic Party that say that the president's stance and his unequivocal support of Israel and his administration's support of Israel is a real issue for supporting him in this upcoming election, even though we know what's at stake, that if it looks like it's going to be Donald Trump going to be the GOP's guy, that there's still a lot at stake. And we know that President Biden has done something for Black America, but this seems to be a major sticking point. How do we deal with that? How do we say, okay, we have a problem with his handling of this, but we like him on that, and so therefore he gains our support? Is that a good strategy for us to take?
Well, as I said a moment or two ago, we helped to save the Zionist lobby from itself, who were hell-bent on sacking President Gay, which I think would have been another shovel of dirt, creating a grave for them in light of this corporate backlash against Mr. Biden's support for Israeli war crimes. Likewise, for those who are Democratic Party supporters, they need to save Mr. Biden from himself. They need to keep pressure on, because if he keeps going down this road, as your comments suggested, he's going to have an electoral disaster in November 2024. I was just looking at the polling data from Michigan, for example, which, as you know, not only has a large Black voting base in Detroit, but the most sizable Arab American voting bases in Hamtramck, in Dearborn, Detroit, et cetera. That's where Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian American in the halls of Congress, that's where she hails from. The polling data right now looks very bad for Mr. Biden, and it's difficult to see a road to victory without him winning Michigan. So once again, for those who are interested in defeating the man that Congresswoman Lynn Cheney called in her recent memoir, the, quote, orange Jesus, unquote, speaking of the 45th US president, to save us from that diabolical, devilish scenario, we have to keep the pressure on with regard to picketing at the White House. There have been numerous protests right at his front gate on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. Those need to escalate and continue.
Let's talk a little bit about, as we talk about what happened with Harvard, then we got to shift gears to see, okay, let's talk about this U.S. veto of this ceasefire effort that was done last week. We briefly reported on it last week when it happened, but I wanted to have a distinguished voice like yourself to talk about it now, that the U.S. actually vetoed this effort to create, to call for a ceasefire. This was a ceasefire that was a package that was put together by over 100 other countries under the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. And as a result of that, and I was reading that America was not satisfied with the conditions of the ceasefire. Therefore, the U.S. decided not to sign on to it. Talk to us a little bit about the significance of this veto. And does this say that America is not really serious about brokering peace in that part of the world?
Well, the short answer to that last question is yes. They are not very serious. And just as we spoke about saving the Zionist lobby from itself, saving the White House from itself, we have to talk about saving the United States right now, because what's happening is that the reputational damage to the United States, which was not very positive in the first instance, is going through the floor. It's going through the basement. You see that with regard to the aforementioned consumer boycotts in West Asia and North Africa of McDonald's and Starbucks. You see it at that vote where France did not stand alongside the United States, Britain abstained, Japan did not stand alongside the United States of America. That is to say that the so-called alliances that Washington has crafted and nurtured over the decades, they're beginning to fragment. The United States is being isolated with its Israeli partner. And that's why if you look at New York Times right now, the lead story is about a developing rift between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Biden. Because, of course, Mr. Biden is feeling the heat from Michigan, from the Fortune 500 and elsewhere. Mr. Netanyahu is hell-bent upon exacting a bloody revenge against the Palestinians. Certainly, he's not killing as many Hamas fighters as he would like us to believe, because of course, most of them are underground. They're in tunnels that are quite deep in the ground, and they are amply supplied with food, etc. Even the hostages or the detainees just released, who were Israeli, have conceded that and have admitted to that. And so that has led to all of these protests in London, in Istanbul, elsewhere. And so this rift is going to continue. But the problem is that this Zionist lobby has gotten too big for its britches. You know, they're planning to defeat a number of members of the Congressional Black Caucus who they feel are not sufficiently supportive of Israel. I'm looking at Congressman Andre Carson of Indiana, a Muslim, by the way, Congresswoman Cori Bush of St. Louis, Congresswoman Summer Lee of Western Pennsylvania, Congressman Jamal Bowman of Bronx Westchester. He already has a option in the primary backed by the Zionist lobby. Hill Harper, the Black actor who's running for office in Michigan, he said he was offered $20 million if he would challenge Congresswoman Tlaib in a primary. And so they're totally out of control. They're helping to isolate the United States of America. And obviously, we have to raise our voice in protest.
Look, I got to take a quick pause. And Doc, I want to get your take on the fact that now there's more and more information. A lot of folks have been talking about this, the treatment of women by Hamas, and how some people are using this as a sticking point to say, you want freedom for Palestine, but look at how Hamas has treated the women. There has been accounts and reports of sexual assault, rape, murder, mutilation in some cases. So I want to get your take on that as well. Folks, stay with us. You're tuned into The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues. Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere. It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We have been checking in with Dr. Gerald Horne, one of our great scholars, researchers, authors, legal minds, and professors here on the network and in Black America, as we talk about some of the big topics surrounding the U.S. and Israel, that relationship. And Dr. Horne, you know, you're talking about how there is a concerted effort and will be a concerted effort for those who are part of the Zionist lobby to go after some of our Black political leaders. My hope is, and I hope this is not just a Santa Claus Christmas wish, Dr. Horne, but I hope they stand strong on truth. I hope they don't bow down to, like you mentioned, Hill Harper, who was offered that $20 million. A lot of people will bow down real quick for $20 million to run in the campaign with the promise of winning. But I'm happy to hear that Brother Hill didn't bow down. But I'm hoping that they're going to stand on truth. But let's talk about the truth of the matter as it relates to Hamas and how there are new reports that show that there is a number of cases of Hamas sexually assaulting women, rape, murder, and mutilation are some of the things that I have read, Dr. Horn, about this situation. And people, Republicans and others who stand with Israel are saying, you want to stand with a group of people who doing this to women. What do we say to that? How should black folks respond to that? And how should, for those who are pro-Palestine, how should they stand? Where should they stand with this?
Well, we should say, number one, to the extent that Hamas violated international law on October 7th, we should not necessarily be in support of that. We should also say that some of the, quote, facts, unquote, of these allegations have been challenged, not least by Max Blumenthal, who has written a number of books about Israel, is considered an expert on Israel. He's all over media talking about this. And he questions whether or not there's an actual factual basis with regard to this. It's interesting that Sheryl Sandberg, the former chief operating officer of Facebook, weighed in at the United Nations with regard to this. Interestingly enough, we have not heard as much about Israeli violations of the bodies and persons of Palestinian women, particularly those in detention. There was just a report on Al Jazeera just this morning. That's the Qatar-based news network, which I must say takes a pro-Palestinian slant. They were talking not only about the perhaps 18,000 who have been killed as a result of these ceaseless bombings in Gaza, but also the humanitarian disaster in terms of women not having sanitary supplies, for example. Hundreds of women lined up to use one toilet, for example. Disease is spreading like wildfire as a result. So certainly, I think that Black Americans, we have to be nuanced with regard to all of these swirling allegations. But at the same time, we have to recognize that the nub of the issue has been an illegal occupation of Gaza and of the West Bank by the Israelis, backed by the United States of America, and also recognize that under international law, those who are occupied have significant latitude in terms of how they resist that occupation.
So we can't get deterred by that. I mean, the fact is that these things are happening. We should speak out against it. But at the end of the day, this still goes back to that critical, crucial point of the illegal occupation of that part of the world. We can't forget that. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Horn?
Well, absolutely. That is the consensus of the international community. As we speak at the United Nations, the General Assembly, recall that there are two bodies in the United Nations. There's the body, the General Assembly, 193 nations strong, encompassing the entire planet. And then there's the Security Council, which has the ultimate power, led by the United States, but including Russia, France, Britain, China. The resolutions we talked about at the top were vetoed by the United States on the Security Council. Now we're shifting to the General Assembly. And at the end of the day, I think that despite these criticisms of Hamas, you're going to see a ringing condemnation of the illegal Israeli settlements on the West Bank in particular. You're going to see a demand for a ceasefire with regard to this bombing of civilians, which, by the way, it's no secret that the Israelis are trying to drive folks out of Gaza so that once again, they can seize land that does not belong to them. And that is the consensus of the international community. And I dare say that Black Americans should stand alongside the international community and not alongside Israel and the Zionist lobby.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go to, and I think that it's important that folks hear you when you say that we have to take a nuanced stance. And I just want to kind of just tune into that just for a quick moment, because, there is a way for you to stand on one thing and to renounce something else while still being in that stand. It's one thing where we could say, you know what, I do not stand for illegal occupation. I do not stand for terrorism, but I do stand for a woman to be protected and preserved. I do not stand for her to be sexually abused and assaulted and mutilated in the course of fighting back. So I think that that is very, very important. And unfortunately, Dr. Horn, you know it like I know it, in our current culture, it's hard to make the differentiation of those nuances because everybody wants to be so plain black and white. So there can't be too many shades of gray in the conversation because people will say, well, then your stand can't be too strong. What's your take on that? That we have to have some level of complexions when we make certain political stands.
Well, it's long been said that a signature and a sign of an agile mind is being able to hold in your brain two contrasting thoughts. And I think that people do that all the time. I mean, for example, many of the folks who are going to line up in November 2024 to vote for Biden, they're going to be very critical of Biden on many issues, not least this backing for these war crimes in Israel. But they may decide that the better part of wisdom is to vote for Biden in order to block the former president, Mr. Trump. And so likewise, I don't think we should be swayed from our full-throated support for the Palestinian cause, despite these newspaper stories swirling all around about what was alleged to have been done on October 7, 2023.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Let's get with the final few moments we have with you, Doc, and I cannot thank you enough for being with us today. Let's talk about what's happening in your neck of the woods of Houston, Texas, where Representative Sheila Jackson Lee has lost her mayoral race, and now she's seeking re-election in Congress. What happened there? She was favorite, Doc. What happened? Talk to us.
Well, there was low turnout, number one. Number two, her opponent, State Senator Whitmire, the ultimate victor, he was able to get his hands on certain audio tapes where Congresswoman Jackson Lee was berating in no uncertain terms members of her staff. There is significant turnover with regard to her staff historically during her 15, 16 terms in Congress since the 1990s. And even though the countering of that particular audio tape was that, well, if this had been a man berating his staff, it wouldn't be a big deal. But a lot of voters were very upset and turned off by how strident she was in treating her staff. And then number two, State Senator Whitmire charged that the incumbent, Mayor Sylvester Turner, who's also a Black American, who supported Congresswoman Jackson Lee, at the end of the race, he said that Congressman Turner had not been particularly inclusive with regard to hiring of Asian Americans and Latinos on the City Hall staff and within the citywide bureaucracy. And those two communities, their numbers are skyrocketing. And apparently that cry, that appeal from State Senator Whitmire struck a chord with them. You stir all of that together, particularly the low turnout from Black Americans, it's understandable why Congresswoman Jackson Lee was not victorious. Now she has to run for her seat, and she has a very competent opponent, speaking of Ada Edwards, who's about half the age of 73-year-old Jackson Lee. Actually, that's not altogether accurate. Ada Edwards is 41, but still she's much younger. And she's going to run a typical race calling for new ideas, new blood, a new generation of leadership, blah, blah, blah. And that too may strike a chord, particularly with younger voters.
Wow. And it seemed like that there was a trend happening, you know what I mean, in certain cities or in some of your major populous cities where Black folks have some influence, where we were starting to see some Black women kind of rising into the mayor's seat here in Los Angeles, of course, with Mayor Karen Bass. In Baltimore, I know that former Mayor Sheila Dixon is running again for her seat there. But there has been talk about this, and the ageism talk hasn't really landed among Black political leadership. But do you think that's a part of this as well? I mean, that we're starting to see some pushback against black political leaders who have served 30 and 40 years and who have given their life to this process, but that they have kind of, overstayed their welcome in some respect. Do you think that's a part of it?
It's possible. I mean, keep in mind that in your neck of the woods, you have Congresswoman Barbara Lee of the Congressional Black Caucus. She's been in the House for decades. Now she wants a promotion running for the seat, U.S. Senate seat vacated by the late Dianne Feinstein.
Right.
She is the oldest candidate in that race, running against Congresswoman Katie Porter, Congressman Adam Schiff. I would be supportive of Barbara Lee if I were in the state of California, but unfortunately for her, my opinion is not necessarily shared by others. Likewise, due north from you in San Francisco, Mayor Breed, she's facing a tough re-election race. She's a black woman. You know that the black population of San Francisco is diminishing rapidly. Some say it's 5%. Some say it's less than that. Some say it's 2%, because that city has been racked with gentrification that you've never seen before. And so she's going to have a very tough race as well. So these black politicians have to be increasingly nimble, particularly when facing ageism charges, which I'm afraid to say will be used against them increasingly going forward.
I don't know. It's going to be used again. Where does the CBC fit in all of this, Dr. Horn? Very quickly. I know we gotta take another quick pause, but where does the CBC? Because I've often, when these things are coming up, and here on the show, of course, we always talk about black political leadership, and the CBC is supposed to be that group of folks that kind of moves the needle along, especially on some of these outstanding issues. Where does the CBC stand on some of these things, in your opinion? Or what role should they be playing at this point?
Well, let's go back to the top. With regard to the CBC and the Zionist lobby, there's really a split. For example, I doubt seriously that the Zionist lobby will be trying to defeat the congressman from Southeast Queens, New York, speaking of Gregory Meeks, the ranking Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I doubt if they'll be trying to defeat Mayor Eric Adams of New York City, because they're in tune with the Zionist lobby. But getting outside of New York, as I said, Congressman Carson, Congresswoman Bush of St. Louis, they're not on board with regard to the Zionist lobby. So there are splits within the CBC itself. And these splits are understandable because, after all, New York City has the largest population of Jewish Americans outside of Israel. And the lobby has its headquarters in New York City as well. And so you have Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, the speaker in waiting from Brooklyn. He too is on board with regard to the Zionist lobby. So the CBC is split depending upon the issue.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that, because that's apparent. That is certainly apparent. But, hopefully they will find some way to get back on the same page. Because we just, this next election is just less than a year away, and there's still a lot of ground to cover. And just like we saw in Houston with the low voter turnout, especially among black folks, that is going to be a major concern going into this election cycle, especially kicking off with the first election being in South Carolina this year. Do you think this is going to be, was that a good move for the Democrats to put that first election, that first primary in South Carolina, to get that momentum started?
Well, it's a good move for Mr. Biden because he is not particularly strong in New Hampshire, which historically has the first primary in February. Many voters in New Hampshire are upset with him because he's trying to downplay New Hampshire in favor of South Carolina. Recall that in 2020, what turned the corner for Mr. Biden was the fact that the black leadership in South Carolina, the Palmetto State, got behind him, and that helped to push him across the finish line. And South Carolina has one of the largest percentages of black voters in the United States of America. And so he feels that in light of his declining popularity across the board, that the black voters of South Carolina once again will work their magic and give him a boost as he heads out to Nevada, where he will face a very difficult race in the primary.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Gerald Horn, one of our great scholars, researchers, professors, historians. I'm so happy that you are able to join us today, and certainly we'll circle back to you, sir. But God willing, we hope that you have a great, great New Year's, and look forward to reconnecting with you very soon. Thank you so much, Dr. Horn.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about finances. Let's talk about financial freedom. Let's talk about planning for your financial freedom, especially during times of uncertainty. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Edmund Moore to give us some insight as to what that should look like. And also, let's talk about the author, the first time author who did her job of trying to sabotage Black authors so that way, when her book comes out into the marketplace, she doesn't have competition. Well, that was a plan that did not work. Folks, I'm going to share with you the latest and talk about why acts like these are a continuing problem in this country. So we'll have that conversation on the other side. Stay with us. We got a lot to cover in the second half of the culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, joining us for the second half of the show. If you missed the first half, you missed a very informative conversation that we just had with Dr. Gerald Horn, as we talked about everything from Harvard University to the U.S. veto of the UN ceasefire efforts and so much more. So make sure you do your due diligence, be a part of Team Replay, go back to that first hour conversation, and then be enlightened by what Dr. Horn had to say. Now, we are streaming live on various platforms here on the Black Star Network. first and foremost, go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. You can download the app for free. Follow us on social media, but it is your financial support that makes the biggest difference as we are looking for investors and stakeholders to take us further along in this digital movement. So do your due diligence. And if you have been enjoying the conversation, you enjoy the chat that we have with the online culture crew, if you've been enjoying this to be able to engage in a different way than any other digital space, but make sure that you put something in the pot. Doesn't matter how much it is, as long as you give, and we will certainly recognize you, and we truly thank you for your support. We're also streaming on Amazon platforms, Amazon News on your Fire TV, Amazon Prime Video. You can find us on Amazon Prime, under the Prime Video app under Live TV and News, or you can find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, Live TV, then News. We're also on Freeview Network. We're on right now under News, and we're on Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network on Plex TV. All right, folks, let us now shift gears from talking about politics and race issues to talking about finances. It is that time of year where financial conversations will start to, spring up as folks are trying to get a better sense and a better management system in place as we go into the new year. And today we wanted to have this conversation talking about financial planning for your future. What does that look like? What does that mean? So we are joined by a brother who can give us some insight. We're going to be joined by Dr. Edmund Moore, author of the book, Financial Freedom, Doing Nothing is an Option. And I want to welcome him back to the airways of the Black Star Network and the Culture, Dr. Edmund Moore. Peace, Brother Edmund. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Brother Farajii?
Good to have you once again. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Brother Edmund, talk to us a little bit about, first, your book, Financial Freedom, Doing Nothing is an Option. I love the title of this book because it goes along with this idea that when you don't choose anything, that is a choice. So I love that. But give us some insight as to the inspiration behind this book and some of the big messages you want us to take from this text.
The inspiration behind the book was my best man, Richard Napier. We were both nearing retirement, and we was going to write a book together. And unfortunately, he passed away before we could do that. But while we was even talking about the idea, he realized that there were plenty of things that he had not done to put that into place, the financial planning and everything into place. That was sort of the roots of the book.
And so that came out of what is this? Not how many years? Because when I've talked to authors, brother, some authors say, this book is like 10 years in the making. Was that the process? Was that the case for you?
This book was about in the last 3 years, and wrote the book in about 6 months after he had passed. There was a delay because when he passed, I didn't want to write the book, but his family and others encouraged me to go ahead, and they said you had to finish the book. So I did go ahead and write the book.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now let's talk about this idea of financial freedom, right? What does that mean to you, Doc? What are we saying when we're talking about financial freedom? Is it talking about being able to just pay your bills, or what?
So financial freedom is being able not just to pay your bills, but your family's bills, and everything around that, to me, in perpetuity. So forever. That is financial freedom.
Being able to pay your bills and your family's bills. Now, some people might hear that, brother, and they say, pay for whose bills?
Right.
But you're talking about, go ahead.
Well, I'm a Christian too, so I believe in sowing and reaping as well. So you don't just sow up all the money for yourself and don't give anything to anybody. There are plenty of people who believe that the money is just for themselves. They don't believe in community or family. Right.
Now, is financial freedom just rooted in strategies and techniques? Because I have actually read that it's also a mindset. And so I want to kind of get your thoughts on that. How much of it is mindset oriented and how much of it is is the I would guess is more the tangible things of like budgeting and planning. Give us some insight into that.
It's a hybrid, but mindset plays a big role in it. You probably seen the studies and seen these people that win the lottery. They win hundreds of millions of dollars and they're broke in 3 years. Even with athletes, they're broke in 3 years. So it's not about having the money. It's having the mindset of what you're going to do with the money once you have it, or you save it and invest it.
What's the biggest mindset myth that you find that people have when it comes to money and financial freedom?
That they don't have enough money to save and invest. That they're going to, whatever money they make, they have to spend it all. And my father called that delayed gratification. They don't have that mindset about delayed gratification, that there's a future.
I like that. I like that. So some people, and I've worked in different industries. I've worked in car sales. I've worked in all different types of sales, and I never forget where I was selling a car. Yeah, folks, can you imagine me selling a car? I never forget when I was sitting down with a potential customer, and this woman made over $100,000, and the car was at the time was it was a Ford. It was a Ford, and the car wasn't that. This was years ago, so the car wasn't as expensive. But I remember pulling her credit, and her credit was okay, but it showed that her debt ratio was so high that she could not afford the car. And I remember sitting there as a young man thinking to myself, damn, she make a lot of money. She makes over 6 figures and she can't get this car. Why is that? And she kind of yeah, I have this going on and that going on. And that was like a real, it was like a teachable moment for me, because I was thinking to myself, Dr. Emmett, like, if she can't afford a car at 6 figures, how can anybody else afford a car? But then I actually sold cars to individuals who made less money. So talk to me about scenarios like that where people make more money. They say, oh, okay, if I got more money, I can get further along. But that's not always the case.
Well, I would say that I started investing in the stock market probably about the year 1986 or 7. And when I went to a broker, I was at the University of Florida in graduate school. I did go to undergrad at Florida A&M University. But he told me there were some doctors that were making $1 million a year there. And he said, you have more money than they do. So although I was only bringing about $12,000 at the time, they were bringing $1 million. They were spending it all. And they were spending more than they had. So his point was, you have more than they have. So it goes back to that fundamental again. It's not how much you earn, it's what you do with it.
I like that. It's not how much you earn, is what you do with what you have. All right, look, Doc, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to get into some more discussions about financial freedom. Plus, let's get some questions from our online culture crew. I'm sure they have many thoughts about this as we have this discussion about planning for your financial freedom, especially during the holiday season, folks. What are you guys doing? What are y'all doing to make sure that 2024 is a better financial year for you than it was in 2023? We'll continue the conversation with Dr. Edwin Moore and you on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3 only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. We have been talking to Dr. Edmund Moore, who serves as the author of the book talking about financial freedom. He wrote a book called Financial Freedom, Doing Nothing is an Option. Yes, folks, doing nothing is an option. You do have to do something to change your financial reality. And that's what we're talking about, planning for your financial freedom. Now, Dr. Moore, as we're talking about, just a simple principle, and I think this is such an important principle, that regardless of what you bring in, the income that you earn, you can still make waves, you can still make strides towards financial freedom. Just as much I tell you about the situation when I was a car salesman, I remember hearing one of our great financial voices, Sister Deborah Owens, at a seminar one day. And what Sister Deborah made the point of, she said that she had talked to a janitor one time who was making a very limited salary, but as a janitor, but he was able to send like 3 or 4 children to college off of this salary because he knew the principles of saving. He knew about the principles of delayed gratification, as you pointed out earlier. He understood this, and he was able to set aside money for himself and his family, send his children to college, and still be a janitor. And I remember sitting there, and I remember sitting in the audience like, what? And it was a black man. She's supposed to say he's a black man, an older black man that knew how to do those things. Do you feel like in today's culture that we do have, is that information readily accessible, more available now than it has been, or what has happened? Because now we're not seeing, and I may be wrong, so you tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that level of commitment and focus and is that not happening today? Because I'm not seeing it. It just doesn't seem like it's a common thing. That's all. That's what I'm trying to get across, Doc.
Well, personally, I believe that financial literacy literacy is not taught on purpose. We live in a capitalistic society, and you make money off of people who don't know.
Right.
And that's the way society works. And so if I'm not teaching you about finances and your parents don't know about it, then you're going to be my customer because you don't know any better, and you're going to pay higher prices, and you're going to put yourself in debt and those type of things. So it's, for lack of a better word, is we're feeding the system with our lack of knowledge, financial knowledge.
And how soon should we have that conversation? How soon should financial literacy start?
I was just in Gainesville, Florida, about 2 weeks ago, and the chapter there with the megas, they were using flashcards to train kids as young as 2 years old about financial literacy. As young as 2. And they had them on computers and that kind of thing. And when they were answering questions correctly, they would give them $1 and that kind of thing. And I'm like, wow. So that they were my heroes when I saw that, because I said 2. They said, oh yeah, they're learning to write cursive and do everything at that young age. And we are making sure that they are educated and that kind of thing. We're feeding them. And that was a change in my mindset. I would have thought that you would probably want to start training young folks about as young as 6 or 7, but not that young.
Not that young. Do you believe that a child is able to retain that information as that early in their growth and process?
It's going to be some of the children at that age, but right. I would say at the young ages between 2 and 6, I think that they will be able to retain that knowledge.
Absolutely. So we're talking about something that when we're saying financial freedom, we're talking about a holistic view, a holistic change to how we to our relationship with money. And I remember listening to other financial planners and having conversations with a lot of financial folks, and that kept coming up. That has always come up in the conversation. What is your relationship with money? And I know you know this too, Dr. Edmond, that our initial relationship with money comes from our parents or whoever took care of us, whoever household we were in growing up, and we can see the adult in the household and how they handled money. And I thought to myself, well, damn, thanks, Dad. No. But it's the fact that even now we're just coming into this understanding, but I think there is some real truth to this. How significant is that based upon what you've learned in your book?
Well, you become what you see and what you experience. So I was fortunate. Both my parents were educators. They were both school teachers. My dad was a coach. And he was a brick mason. So he was a businessman as well. And so I learned not just from him, but from my grandfather. My grandfather, who served in World War I, he had an imaginary cigarette habit. He noticed that the soldiers around him were smoking cigarettes and wasting their money. So he decided, I'm going to have an imaginary cigarette habit. And for about 20 cents a day, he just saved the money that he would use to smoke. And when he got out of service, he was able to buy 40 acres of land, a mule, a cow, and a buckboard. And
how many acres of land?
40 acres of land. He was able to buy in Alabama.
40 acres. Wait a minute. Hold on, Doctor. Hold on, brother. Hold on. Your grandfather had an imaginary cigarette habit, so he put money away. He saved up so much money. He bought 40 acres, and he literally bought 40 acres and a mule.
Yes, and a buckboard. Yes, he did, and raised 12 children. And all his children went to college.
All right, so let's put this in context, because I know some people might take this and run with the story. But let's put this in context. Like, what year are we? What's the year? What's the time frame that we're talking about that this is happening?
World War I was about 1918 to 1921, maybe in that time frame. So yes, that's so we're talking about in the.
Probably about 100 years ago.
Yeah. 23 now. Yeah.
Right. We're talking. We're about to go into 24, God willing, right? So we're talking about 100 years ago. He was able to do that. And certainly the economics in this country, and especially for Black folks in this country, has changed dramatically. Do you think that type of success can be gained in 2023 going into 2024? Can we still have an imaginary cigarette habit, put something away, and still buy some land and mule? And it may not be 40 acres. It could be 2 acres. It could be 3 acres. But do you think that could still happen today?
I would say in this environment, it's tougher. But one thing we can do, we can probably go back to some of the things that Kawanzo Kenjufu used to preach in his book on economics. A lot of times, you need to partner with 2 or 3 other people, pull your money together so that you can grow your money faster and your opportunities versus doing everything on your own.
Absolutely. Let me just share a couple of things, and some of the crew members are checking in, Dr. Edmond, and one of the big things that I'm seeing, I saw this from my brother, Pastor Damon Blissett. He said, Farajii, Black people like to wear their wealth. We love to show how much money we got. We want to see the big change. We want to drive our wealth, right? We want to show the big cars. And you might be living in the hood, but you got a nice car. Talk to us about the pros and cons of that. Is that something that we completely need to eliminate from our culture, or is that something that we can do, but we got to do some other things also behind that?
Well, I would say in my hometown many years ago, used to have this saying that someone would have a shotgun house and they would have a car in front of their house that was worth more than the house. So that's the same philosophy of you wearing a $600 pair of jeans versus going and buying a $40 pair of jeans. You're wearing your wealth on your back. It's depreciating, or you're driving in it. And books like The Millionaire Next Door show that the people who are millionaires next door, they live in a modest-sized house, sort of what Warren Buffett never moved out of his house, and they are not wearing their wealth.
Right. And that is something that's cultural as much as it is economic, right?
Is it really cultural? Or is it something?
I think so. I think here's my little humble opinion, Dr. Edmond, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, brother. I think that capitalism around the time of your grandfather was still a baby. You're talking about 100 years ago, still a baby, still trying to figure out how to walk around. It was just crawling and grabbing and pulling stuff. Now capitalism is a full-grown adult that has completely taken over all of our lives, right? It's everywhere. Capitalism, and I'm saying this idea that everything that we do must be quantified and be have some type of profit from it, right? And that we need to always be in the gaining exchange, whether it's in our relationships, whether it's in the work that we do. Like, everything is commodified, and I have a very, very serious issue with this because it takes away from our humanity. It takes away from our communal spirit that we have as a people. There's a real problem that I have with capitalism. And so I see that. And I think that's part of the reason why we, quote unquote, wear our wealth, because it compels us. We're in this space and in this time where you need to show that you are, quote unquote, you are somebody, that you are valuable. Look what I got on. Look at what I live in Los Angeles. I see it every day. Wealth is extreme in this. And then you have the poorest of the poor. So the disparity is the size of the Grand Canyon. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's cultural just as much as economic. Like, and the funny thing about it, Dr. Edmond, I know we got to take another pause. The funny thing about it is some Black folks actually think that we don't make a lot of money. And we actually do. We make a lot of money. Even though we deal with all these challenges and all of this stuff, social, economic, and political stuff, we actually make a lot of money. But what do we have to show for it?
Well, we may make sufficient money, but you had to go back and look at the redlining. You have to look at when was the first time we were ever able to use the banking system, the finance system. It was basically mid-70s. So we were locked out of the financial system that allowed you to build wealth, save wealth.
But your grandfather was able to do it. I mean, back in 100 years ago, 1920, shit, we had no system to rely on. The only system that we relied on was ourselves and our ability to create a system for ourselves, right? So I think that's one of the things that we can take from the experience of like your grandfathers and many other of our great ancestors, that at the end of the day, even though we didn't have those systems in place, we had some understanding that we can say, you know what, I don't have to put my money in the hands of somebody else. I can hold my money. I can manage my money. I can control my spending. I don't have to wait on somebody to create a system. Let me be the system.
So you just answered one of the problems why we don't have wealth. I can hold my money. I can put my money under the pillowcase. I can put my money in a safe. That money's not growing. We went in a system that allowed the money to grow. So if your house burned down, you lost all your money. That's what I'm saying about not being allowed in the financial institution. Plus, we weren't allowed to participate in the New Deal. So we lost out on the education, all the housing that was available from that as well. So we're in a position now where we really just have to build up where we are right now and take advantage of the system and change our mindset.
I hear you. Tiana, my sister, you said consumerism has got some of us in chokeholds. Consumerism, always wanting to buy. Lord, Lord, Lord. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Can the church say amen? Amen. Consumerism. I don't know. Look, anybody ever go into a space like a Target? They give you that Starbucks latte and it's over. It's over, Jack. Boom. Let me get that latte. Oh, yeah. Also, they say, you need anything else in return? Be like, no, I don't have nothing else to give because I spent it all. It's over. Real Brooklyn, you said the root of all evil is the love of money. Capitalism is not a bad thing. It's the love of money that makes capitalism so horrible. I'm going to push back on that, Real Brooklyn. I'm pushing back on that. Capitalism is the system, right? That's the system. That's the way our current system is. Yeah, you can have a quote unquote love for money, but capitalism will make your love for money into an unnatural desire where everything is seen from the vantage of how can I gain from this? Whether you're talking about your personal relationship, professional relationships, the use of your talents and skills, everything is commodified and quantified to how can I make some money off of that? And you don't see people. That's the problem I have with capitalism. You don't see people for who they are. You only see people for what you can get from them. And I think that's a huge problem. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue our conversation with Dr. Edmund Moore as we're talking about planning for your financial future. I'm going to share with you a study from the University of Michigan as they really study the index of where we are with our relationship with money as a whole, as a country. I'm going to share with you what the latest study is about that. And of course, continue to take your comments. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff.
So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been checking in and talking to Dr. Edmund Moore, who serves as the author of the book Financial Freedom. Doing nothing is an option, as we're talking about planning for your financial freedom. And Dr. Moore, again, thank you so much, brother, for your time being with us today. Bozer Blick, you put out something that I think speaks to what we were talking about and have been talking about, which is mindset. Bozer, you said many have a lack scarcity mentality instead of an abundance wealth mentality when it comes to financial planning. Dr. Edmund, do you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, definitely agree with that. There's a scarcity mindset in this country. And quite honestly, that drives the battle between races. There are certain folks that believe that if you get something, then I lose something. They don't think that there is enough for us all. So your gain is my loss. That's the scarcity mindset.
And I think that is part of the issue. Should we as Black folks in this country really have different conversations? And I brought up capitalism, but should we have different conversations about a new economic paradigm where we're not in competition with one another, but we're more in partnership with one another?
Oh, most definitely. We'll get ahead more if we work together versus fighting against each other. And that's why I brought up that was just an article I read in the paper. I think it was a couple of days ago. There was a longitudinal study about guaranteed income. I think it was in an African country, and they found that over something like 20 years, that the people who received a monthly stipend over those years versus the control group that received a lump sum. The person that got the lump sum, they had 80% more businesses started than the folks who got the money over the 20 years. So that's why I said that. So if you don't have the resources, you really can't effectively start anything. And that's why access to credit markets and that kind of stuff is so important.
And should we, as Black folks in this country, should we put our eggs in different baskets, considering there is a lot of uncertainty about the financial health of this country. Some people say put it in the stock market. Some people say put it in the RIA, IRAs and other retirement accounts. And some say, well, put it in crypto. People are in a lot of different spaces, but considering that this country is where it is right now, is that beneficial? Would that be helpful or harmful?
Well, you have to diversify.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have all your wealth in housing or real estate. You shouldn't have all your wealth in cash. You shouldn't all have it in the stock market. You should have it spread across a variety of different investment ideas. Because when something is up, something else is down. If you invest completely in housing and all of a sudden the housing market goes down, you are done.
Yeah.
If you have your money in startups and you have no cash, you need a balanced portfolio, for lack of a better word. And I look at things like 401ks and Roths and those type of things. Those are just devices, even Bitcoin, for investing money or putting money there.
Right. So you don't have a lot of faith in those financial products?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying they're just vehicles for investing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, absolutely.
Now,
absolutely.
Me, I don't have personally, I don't have a lot of faith in the cryptocurrencies.
Mm-hmm.
I would invest. I view it as the rare metals markets, those kind of things. But that's just me.
Right. Okay. I hear you. Very quickly as we wrap up this part of the conversation, Dr. Edmond, the University of Michigan, on this past Friday, they put out what is called a consumer sentiment index. And this is a consumer sentiment index. It pretty much measures how we feel and in terms of our relationship to money as a collective, as a country. And it showed that the consumer sentiment index jumped 13% to 69.4. And the big conversation in the financial world is that people have become less worried about inflation and more optimistic about a number of other things outside of money. So economists are very happy that there is a more optimistic view of the economic conditions. And that, of course, creates the domino effect that if people feel like they're more hopeful in the economy, they will spend more, they will put more back into the market, and the market will continue to do what it do. But what are your thoughts about this? That based upon this consumer sentiment index, that people are feeling better, even though prices are still high for some goods and services. And we may not necessarily feel like the economy is shaping up to go into a better direction. How does that bode with you, brother?
Well, I would say the economy has been improving. Once prices go up, prices are not going to come back down. Gas may go up and down, but if I'm selling a loaf of bread and I get that bread price at a certain level, I'm going to find a way not to let that price go back down where it was. Even if I have to reduce the size of the loaf, it's not going to get back down to where it was. So a lot of the part about the inflation part is people got to be realistic. The prices are not going back down to where they were before they went up. The good news from my perspective in the market is you look at the jobs report there, you can't find people to take jobs now. And everywhere you go, you will notice that customer service is down and businesses are really trying to hire people. They have to pay people more. So that's helping out with inflation, people making more money now. So from that standpoint, people should feel better. Now, on the flip end, if you are a person that's underemployed, can't get a job, the economy ain't doing nothing for you. And prices are high.
Absolutely. And especially for this time of year, what would you recommend? Because folks are going out shopping, getting ready for Christmas. People are, as some of the crew members are saying, people are spending money like crazy. How do we make sure that this holiday season doesn't become a season of joy to a season of despair and regret come January 1st of 2024?
Set a firm budget on what you're willing to spend for Christmas or the other holidays coming up during this month. That's the key, and don't go over it. And quite honestly, for those families that don't have, there are a lot of organizations, churches, and other organizations that are giving away toys and other things that the needed families. Take advantage of those. But whatever you do, don't go out and put yourself in further debt just for the holidays.
So that means somebody ain't going to get a Christmas gift. Is that what you're telling them? You encouraging that, Dr. Edmond?
What I'm saying is that if you don't have it, seek out somewhere that maybe giving out some things for you. Well, Christmas is one of the most depressing times of the year. We have a lot of
no doubt
around Christmas. And
absolutely.
People don't feel that they can give to their family and that kind of thing. So, yeah, don't make it worse by going into 2024 further in debt.
Come on, brother. Come on. I totally agree with you, but I also agree that some people don't deserve presents. No, that's another that's another conversation. All right, Doc. Look, you have any resources that you can recommend, and how can people get your book as being a part of their resource list as they're talking about planning for their financial future?
They can get my book on Amazon. They can get it at Barnes and Nobles. They can go to my website, edmundhmoore.com as well. But that's the easiest way to get it. It's Amazon, they'll deliver it to you.
There it is, right there. There it is. Dr. Edmund Moore, we truly appreciate you, dear brother. And I thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. And, we'll bring you back on to have more discussions. But thank you so much for your time. Great insight. But folks, I know that this is a long-standing issue, so this is not going to be wrapped up by the end of 2023. But I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much, brother.
Hey, thank you. Have a Merry Christmas. And
you too.
Next month, I'll tell you how my brother lives off $1,000 per month.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, brother Edmund. Truly appreciate you, brother. Oh, man. Look, we got to. All right, folks. Make sure y'all pick up his book, Financial Freedom. Doing nothing is an option. Man, what a great conversation that we just had with Dr. Edmund Moore, man. A lot to talk about, but I think that was a good conversation. So, like he said, don't overextend yourself during this holiday season. And more importantly, think about yourself during this holiday season, because guess what? God willing, January 1st is the transition into the new year. It starts all over again. All right, look, got to take another pause. When we come forward, let me talk to you about what this one first-time author did and why it's important for us to never stop fighting for Black folks. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues. Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere. It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. For our final discussion, I wanted to bring up something. Y'all probably will see this story, but this is a really, really interesting story, really crazy one, where a first-time white author, she lost a book deal, folks, after she was accused of trying to sabotage Black authors by posting negative reviews of their book. I'm talking about Kate Corain. She is the author of this of the upcoming sci-fi novel Crown of Starlight. This is her. Let's make that picture bigger. And I look at this picture, y'all. Look at this. And I'm talking about the book cover. She apologized for her actions after she became the center of backlash online last week. She was dropped by her U.S. publisher and her agent after, according to the reports, after readers and fellow authors accused her of posting fake negative reviews to a popular book recommendation website. That website is called Goodreads. And so she was posting these negative reviews on Black authors' books. And Del Rey Books, owned by Penguin Random House, they said on yesterday that it was aware of the ongoing discussion around Kate Corain and that her book, originally scheduled for publication on May the 14th, it will no longer be on its 2024 publishing schedule. Her book agent, Rebecca Potos, also said she has cut ties with Kate Corain. Her former book agent said, Kate and I will not be continuing our partnership moving forward. I deeply appreciate the patience of those directly impacted by last week's events as I work through a difficult situation. And it put Black authors right into the spotlight as this white woman posted all of these negative reviews. Now, here's why I say we gotta stop. We can't stop fighting for Black folks, because it doesn't even matter whether somebody is doing something to us or we're just doing, handling, minding our own business, doing our own thing. That level of white supremacy, white privilege, those things will creep in at every point and every turn that we make. And this is why I think it's very, very interesting, folks, that when people always ask the question, why are y'all so mad and things have gotten better? We can't even put out a book without somebody imposing their whiteness, their white privilege into our space, right? And this isn't just one incident. Every time we want to do something, every time we want to move forward, every time we want to express ourselves, somebody is there to try to diminish it. Somebody is there to try to make us feel less than. Somebody is there to try to tarnish when we try to move forward. If y'all understood the struggle of Black writers, the struggle that Black writers endure in figuring out the stories that they want to tell, most likely it's about our personal experiences, then putting that process, putting those stories on paper. Now you got to figure out how the struggle to get a manuscript in the hands of a book agent, then getting your book agent to believe in your abilities, your story enough to sit you in front of a publisher. Getting the struggle of getting that publisher to recognize your talent, your worth, your value, your ability to tell this story or these stories in a way that they put money and resources behind you. It's a struggle to just be Black. It's a struggle for us to just mind our own business. And this is just another one of those situations. And I don't care nothing about how much she apologized. I hope this lady never gets another book deal. And if she does, I hope she doesn't sell not one damn book. Because it's sad. It is absolutely, positively sad that she went so far to try to diminish, to try to thwart, to try to stop the rise of other Black authors, of other authors, just for her book to not have competition. Come on, man. Janelle, my sister, you said James Patterson lamented the struggle he says white men now face fighting writing jobs in film, theater, TV, and publishing. He called it just another form of racism. What's that all about? because people are getting sick and tired of white supremacy. You know what I'm saying, Jay? Now you know what it's all about. James Patterson is his stories have been reigning supreme for decades, and I bet you he wouldn't lift a finger, say a word, speak a word in support of black authors. Because why? He wants to always be that guy. He wants to always be the guy that reigns supreme with this. And when I heard this story, it just got to me. We can't do nothing. We don't have to be bothering anyone. We could just be trying to figure out, okay, let's do something for ourselves. Let's tell our story. Let's do our part. Let's just move the culture further along. And somebody is always there at every turn to try to make us feel like we shouldn't be doing something, or this is wrong, or they try to use us as a scapegoat for their issues and their failures. Karen, my sister Karen Connor, you said she should be sued for libel, slander, and defamation by all the black authors she harmed. Right. Matter of fact, she should also throw this in the mix, Karen. She should also have to purchase a case of books from each black author. Oh, okay, Jano, you said Farajii, he asked, what's that all about? While he was whining. Yeah, well, I'm glad for the clarification. Thank you so much, Jano. It's mind blowing that when wrong is committed, how some white people don't understand or can't wrap their minds around it. This is not all. But y'all want to know very quickly, and we don't have enough time. Maybe we can figure out a day and time to talk about this. But do y'all want to know what I think will have to happen at some point? That other white people have to say enough is enough. That white people have to call their own people out for the madness, for the privilege, for the arrogance, for the sense of supremacy that some carry in their minds and their hearts and their spirits, to feel like that in order for them to get further along, that nobody else can be in the race. Nobody else can be in the table. Nobody else can be in the room. Nobody else can be in the industry. You have to have courageous white people in this country that says enough is enough. Because it's not enough for us to just scream and shout about it. It's got to be other people who are willing to say, you know what, enough is enough. And again, for Kate Corain, enough is enough. Enough is enough. You messed that up. And I'm glad the publisher dropped her. I'm glad her book agent dropped her. I'm serious. I hope she never, and if her book goes straight to a Walmart basket. Right. Cindy D, you said a book Karen. A book Karen. I ain't never think about that, Cindy. Ain't that a blip? A book Karen. Who would ever thought that in this day and time, now we got to worry about book Karen from, come on. Cindy, you asked also, was she writing to a black audience? Her book cover looks like it. She was a sci-fi, right? That's what I was looking at too. She's a sci-fi author. Book hasn't even dropped yet. Let's remove that lower third. Let's just see the whole book very quickly. We're gonna do this very quickly. There we go. Crown of Starlight. Who is she writing about? It looked like Rihanna on the cover. This is crazy. Absolutely insane. So brought this to your attention because it's just another example, folks, that I think that we still have so much work to be done in this country. But I think that if for those white allies who see the injustice, you got to start speaking up. Because there's no way in the world that in 2023 going into 2024, we still got to deal with situations like this. Now, again, there's nothing to be held against those black authors, but just their credibility, reputation. They go on to Goodreads, which is a major website for literacy and literary conversations. They go into this website and see that stuff. Justice has to be the order of the day in a moment like this, in a situation like this. But it just goes to show you, we try to do every little game, we're going to have to be pushed back because of somebody saying, nope, we can't allow that to happen. So Kate Corain, I ain't crying no damn crocodile tears for you. You can keep your funky ass book. Nobody want to read it anyway. And at this point, I hope you never get another book publishing deal in life. You should just fade to black, Kate. Fade to black. All right, y'all. I had to get that one off my chest. Had to get that one off my chest. All right, I appreciate y'all so much for joining us for today's show. Make sure y'all do your due diligence, show your love. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app, follow us on social media, and please give something to help us continue to move us forward in this digital space. Big shout out to all of our new watchers that came into the chat this afternoon. So thank you so much for being a part of those conversations. And big shout out to our wonderful, loyal, our loyal culture crew members. Y'all know who y'all are. Y'all are in here every day, chopping it up with me, chopping it up with our guests. So I truly thank each and every one of you for joining me this afternoon. Stay tuned. Up next 6 p.m. is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thank Dr. Horn. We want to thank Dr. Edmund Moore. I want to thank my production team for making this show possible. And again, thank you for tuning in. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow. Got my sister Suzette Speaks back on tomorrow. So we're going to have a lot to say, but we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture, right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Have a great afternoon. Talk to you soon. Peace.